I didn't know that you drove a Bronco. Is that new?
That is new.
I was gonna say, I was like, I've been to your house many times and I have not seen that badass Bronco that you just rolled up in.
Yeah, it's about a month old,
Wow.
and I've been looking for a car for a while because I'm someone who gets a car and drives it until like it's dead.
Yeah.
And on the way to the dealership, it was the something was going out on it, like transmission or whatever. And because I'd given my mom the other Lexus that I had, this one had like 200. My old Lexus had like 200,000 miles on it. And so, yeah, when this one came available, the dealership knew I was looking for a Bronco and they called me up. And I was like, done. Like, I saw it. I'm going to go get it right now. So,
Did you want that color?
no, I was looking for all black one. And
Okay.
then I saw that color and I was like, ah. And then it's grown on me. I actually really like it now.
Is there do you have a story with Broncos? A lot of people who ride Broncos now are like they have some like nostalgic story about like
No.
their dad driving a Bronco back in the day.
Yeah, no, it's honestly, I was going off to the look. I went and I looked at so many different cars that just look cool and
Yeah.
it was something different. And it I'd looked at a lot of cars and then all of a sudden I saw it, I was like, that's what I want. Like it stood out to me and I've loved it since. Like it's grown on me even more that I love it even more, especially now that I drive it because it looks very like clunky and looks like it might not drive well, but it drives great.
Does your husband Steve have a truck?
Yes.
Okay, I was gonna say one of you guys has to have a truck for all the equipment.
Yes, well, specifically his job because he does logistics for movies and shows, and so he needs a truck and be able to tow. But now my truck can do the same thing, and the Lexus was definitely holding us back for like camps and stuff.
Yeah.
I'd have to get someone else to come pick up stuff to take to a training camp, and now I have the space, so it's good.
Is it true that there was a point in time where you were living out of your car in your early Ironman days?
No, I don't know where you got that story.
Someone told me that. I won't disclose that. I won't
Yeah, it
disclose that.
was no. So there was a car story in that I was driving a car. I had when I met Steve, I had this orange Mini Cooper, and he was like, "Why do you have an orange Mini with the top down?" And
UT.
yeah, no, it really was, and it was just cute and again cool looking, and and then I was paying this car payment. He's like, "Why are you paying this car payment? Like, especially if you want to go into triathlon, you're quitting your tennis job. Like, we need to figure this out." So we sold that, and then he found like a truck for like $2,000.
Yeah.
And the seat wasn't even upright. Like, I had to put one of those posture pillows.
Yep.
Behind my back just to sit, and then I couldn't even roll up the window, and no, I didn't care because like no one's gonna steal this car, and it was banged up everywhere. So we actually drove that, and we lived really, really lean. Like if you could see how Steve and I lived, I mean, I still feel like we live really lean, but if you could see how we lived like 10 years ago in the small, really rundown apartment that we were barely paying anything, and we would never ever reach out to them if something was wrong because we were like, we don't want them to increase the rate. And then these cars that were just completely banged up, just so we could save and get in position to like, have a family and build up and move into a house.
Yeah, I love those kind of stories just because they're so they really shape the future of what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go in life and just seeing what you've been able to build and not knowing that. I mean, I knew that you came from humble backgrounds and humble beginnings and really worked for everything that you've gotten, but I didn't know the story of you guys, living in that apartment and the truck. So I'm curious, what was one of the biggest things that you learned about yourself, about life, about investing into your future through those times?
You don't need much. I mean, I was very happy with very little. So that would be one thing. It was worth it, definitely. I see some other people when they start building businesses, and I'm like, you're spending so much. Like I'm the opposite. Like I'm like, no, we need to make the money first, and now I can like spending things. And granted, maybe it's held us back a little bit, but I did things safely, which for me was a more comfortable way to go. What other things from that time? But yeah, I'm very much a simplicity. I mean, even now, like, could we probably move into something nicer? Yes, but I'm like, I'm so comfortable here. It's small, it's located close to everything we enjoy. It's hospitable. That was a big thing for us. Like moving into a house was, is this a place where we could bring people and friends together, which is what we do with small group and everything else. And we have the space to do so. So why would we need anything else? It's just like priorities, right? And goods and houses and fancy cars. Like, honestly, this Bronco is pretty ridiculous because I'm not a fancy car person. It was really hard for me to even spend the money.
Yeah.
But Steve was like, no, you work really hard and you've never regretted getting a nicer car. Like, he talked me into the Lexus. He helped me like make this leap on the car because I didn't want to spend that money. I'm like, man, that money can go to someone else, or like, we don't need that. Let me just get from point A to point B. So that's been nice. But at the end of the day, like, is it necessary? No. Like, I don't feel the need for things.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed about you is you're such a giver, not just of money, but of time, of your energy. I can feel your passion at church on Sundays and at small groups on Tuesdays. And whenever you're around people, like you care so much about them and you want to know about them and their journey and what's going on in their lives. And you very rarely ever talk about yourself, or from what I've seen, like ask for help, or really it's so admirable to see how selfless you are. Do you think that's something that you've always had a part of you, or has it been something that you've developed over the years?
Yeah. Let me answer that correctly. I'll start by where I am now because my memory to go back, like, how was I? But because I come from those humble beginnings, like, I knew when someone like did something for me back then and where I came from, like, it was a big deal. So like right now, if like we're in a position to do that for somebody, like we're definitely gonna do that. Because it can change everything. I have so many people that have stepped up in my life that literally changed everything by the smallest. To them, it was like the smallest of things. To me, it was the biggest of things. And then, I don't see myself as someone, I don't know, like I get given this comment very oftenly, like, you should have more confidence and you should be like more about, hey, look at what I'm doing. And it just feels so weird
Mm.
to be that way. It's just not in my DNA. And so when I don't talk about myself because I'm just like, who am I? I'm just someone hustling just like you. And things have gotten lucky here and there, and God's definitely blessed me. And so now, I mean, that's a whole nother story. It's just like God has blessed me with me being in this position, and how can I now bless others? Because everything is from Him. Everything I do needs to be for Him. And right now, that is my time, that is my energy, that is me being able to care for others by the means that I have currently necessary.
Yeah, the sport of Ironman too is so interesting. I Something that I'm not super like well versed in, something I don't know much about other than I see the videos of people 8 hour training session on a Saturday, and like their whole life is committed to that. My good friend Eric Hinman talked about how he sacrificed a ton in his 30s. Like he didn't get married, he didn't have kids, he didn't do this, he didn't do that because he was so committed to Ironman. And he told me once, he was like, yeah, I mean, if you wanna have a family, if you wanna have kids, if you wanna do well at your job, if you wanna do this, that, and the other, like probably shouldn't go into Ironman. But
Yeah.
what I've seen from you is you've kind of been an outlier in whereas you've become a pro, you've also created this incredible, I don't even just want to say coaching business because it really is just this community, and you're also super involved in church and you host small groups, and you're you have your hand in so many different things, and you do them all so well. So I'm curious how you've been able, I don't like the word balance, but
Right.
almost how you've been able to, we'll say, like manage and like
Yeah.
distribute your energy into specific areas.
Yeah, so I would say I'm not an outlier because I had to stop my career as a professional triathlete in order for these things to happen. And then it really got to a point of like my priorities now. So, I mean, we put off having kids. I only had Nadine when I was 35, 36 years old. So, exactly what Eric was saying, like I did that as well. And there was a lot of time, selfish time, where we didn't go to weddings, we didn't go on holidays because I was so invested in this journey of being the best triathlete I could be, But also with the mindset, and Steve knew this as well, is what am I learning through this journey that in the future I could help others. So it's been a blessing that that actually panned out, and now we have the coaching company we do. But now it's a different season, and I did have to kind of put that down. Could I do an Ironman and be okay? Yeah, absolutely, because I know how to train and maximize the time I have available, and that is a lot of athletes that we do have. We just talk about balance and sustainability, but if you do want to be good, like there is going to be some sacrifice. And at this point, I don't want to sacrifice church, my family, all those things. And so I just, exercise to be healthy. And then the business is a big priority. If I had to choose business and how I can serve the community through this business and my training, I'm like, well, this is going to go. I've had that opportunity, and I have been selfish for all these years to now be in a position to give.
Hmm. Do you think that the business has grown because you've taken a step back from your own training?
Absolutely. There's no way that we could have grown as we did if I did not do that. So, everyone asks, like, how did this happen? And I'm like, yeah, like I was all in. I've luckily have the support of my husband, and my family understands. I mean, when I'm traveling, my mom is taking care of Nadine. And if I'm like, I've still got these few projects to do, Steve goes and plays tennis with Nadine, and he understands what we're doing here and the lives being impacted. But yeah, we're going all in with this, and it does require a lot of time.
When was the decision to say, I need to take a step back, and this is something that's bigger than me in my own pursuit?
Yeah, it's funny. So I did Ironman Florida was my last pro race, and that was 2020. I had an incredible race. And right after that, that's when I started coaching Nick Bear. And I remember I was driving with my coach at the time, who's now one of my coaches on the staff. And I said, man, I think the exposure of this, it's going to turn into something, and we will be able to build something. And it was really at that moment, I'm like, I just had this incredible race. This is a great way to end this, and go all in. Not thinking that, no, I was really going to end it. But then what happened is through that exposure, I got email after email of like, I want to work with you. I want to work with you. And I was like, okay, we're ready. I'm maxed out here. I need to start hiring. So it wasn't only a month later, I started hiring like my next 4 coaches, and then the next coaches and the next coaches. We're at 20 coaches now, 3 years into it. So yeah, I mean, right at that last race 3 years ago, where this business took off, I was just like, this makes sense. And honestly, I didn't have any desire at that point. I was taking all my competitiveness and all the desire and excitement and everything I had into triathlon training and becoming the best triathlete I can be, to figuring out this business, because there's no way I even knew what I was doing. This was brand new for me as well. I knew how to coach people. I had no idea how to run a business. And we can talk about that more, but one of the funny things many people know is like, I don't even know how much money I was making for that first 8 months, because I wasn't doing my books. Money was coming in. We were building a website, figuring out how to do this thing. And I was like, let's just provide the service. Let's just provide the service. I'll pay you. And then I was like, oh, I'm making this amount of money, and I better figure this out, because we're just like, yeah, just focused on, for me, the things that mattered.
So in your early days of Ironman, what were you doing to bring in income?
Yeah, so I was a tennis coach first, and I left my tennis job, which was like 50 hours a week, just did some private lessons on the side. Then my husband and I came up with this idea to start a bike transport company. At the time, there was just like one big bike transport company, but we'd seen that with the way they transported bikes, they were damaging bikes.
So from like 4 other Ironman athletes?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So what we did, and we built out a truck, and then I started reaching out on Facebook to people, because they would release the list of who was going to these Ironmans, and I would like reach out, hey, I see you doing Ironman Florida. Can we take your bike? Like really hustled, and
That's
I sent out
awesome.
like 200 messages, and people were like, yeah, tell me about it, and I'd show them like how we do it. And then we started partnering with bike shops, so these athletes would drop off their bike at a local bike shop. I drove a 30-foot trailer to the bike shop. I would go and load them up, and then I would drive it to California, to Canada. And then that was my first like 5-6 years of racing as well. So I would drive this truck, and this is how we hustled to make this work. And then get there, unload all the bikes, and then I would race an Ironman, and then I'd be in the parking lot, and we'd be racking all the bikes back in, and then the next day, back in the trailer, driving across country to just unload all the bikes. And so I ran that business, and then I started coaching as well. I got asked to be part of this coaching company, and I got brought in to help coach athletes. And so the combination of that, and then Steve had his job as well.
How is Steve able to manage that with all the races? I mean, I know it's not like people are doing Ironmans every day, but still.
Yeah, it was chaos. So we did about 6 to 8 races, and what he would do is, so he works on commercials and he on films and TV shows, and so he would do the logistics for that for just say 3 months, while I'm working on getting the business for this company, coaching, etc. And then he would come home from that like 12 p.m. and the next morning 6 a.m. we'd be in our truck like driving cross country, and he'd help me with that race. He'd come back and then he'd get on another show. And so I don't know how he did it, but we look back and it was just a chaotic time of hustling, I would say, to figure this out.
So how long did that stretch last?
Like 6 years.
6 years.
Yeah, and then we sold the company to a young guy that we got so big that one of the guys working for us, we offered it to him first, and he bought it from us, and then he grew it even bigger, and then the main company bought it from him, and he killed it. He made so much money off that company. So it's no longer, but it was a success to its end, I would say.
And so it sounds like that business also gave you the time that you needed to actually put in work and train for these Ironmans as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I mean, I would train, the 3-4 hours a day, and then it'd just be on the computer, like setting up logistics, reaching out to people. Then coaching is just all remote as well. Did a couple in-person stuff, and so you could kind of do it all on your own time and figure it out. But it worked. I'd say the one thing it didn't help was that driving. Like my back was always sore whenever I did an Ironman, and then I'd get to the race and I'd be like, I'm pretty tired. And so when I made the decision, I was like, no more. Like my performance was way improved from that moment.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of just the opposite of what we're told is after an endurance race is keep the blood moving, don't get in a car, don't get on a plane, don't do too much of that. So yeah, I'm sure that had to have a huge impact on your body. Like, do you still feel that now, or has it kind of subsided?
No, it's subsided, but I have many a chiropractor and PT visit behind my back.
How much does it cost to do a full Ironman? Say say you're gonna prep for 6 months, and then go and do the Ironman. Like, rough estimate, what does that cost?
It's expensive. So like the races these days, I need to double check. I feel like it's $800 or something just to enter the race.
Wow.
And then you have to look at all the gear. And so like the bike is the most expensive thing. And so like an entry level triathlon bike these days is $3,000 to $4,000, but most people are investing more than that. So we have some people that spend $15,000 on their bike. And so you have
more than my car.
I know. Yeah. What's funny is we had a running joke that if you saw someone show up with like a really nice bike and a really crappy car, that is a great athlete because they spent their money on their bike, and that means they must be good. But anyway, so you factor in all the equipment, you factor in the travel to the race, the hotel, etc. I mean, that's quite a bit, and then the training. So you need to be a member of a gym to go to the pool for the most part. And then a lot of people do invest in coaches because most people don't know how to manage 3 different sports and be very effective with their time. And where we come in is we say, how can we do this on as little amount of time as possible? And then how do we help you avoid the mistakes? Because you can do all the training, but if you don't know how to fuel, you don't know how to pace yourself, all those small little details add up. And you can't go unprepared for an Ironman. It's too long of a day to make mistakes. You're just going to be crawling to the finish line. So we help people avoid those mistakes. And because of that, we have early success with a lot of people like newer in the sport.
Did you have a coach yourself, or were you coaching yourself?
Yeah. I went through stages of being coached and then coaching myself as well. My best success was a mixture. Right at the end, I found like the best. I liked the way I was doing my bike training, but I didn't like to swim, and I needed that outside input to tell me what to do on the swim. And I'd also hit a roadblock of improvement. So I hired someone to give me programming for the swim. And in the running, I was running by myself, not really getting the results. And I was like, okay, can I join a group? And so I had a group that I could go with and a run coach giving me that programming. And then I actually ended up getting a bike coach like right at the end, just because I was so unmotivated to do these 5, 6 hour rides. Like I needed someone to tell me what to do. And then the strength coach as well. Like I was going in, our strength coach today, going and working in the gym with Harold. So it's like all the pieces I needed, I knew I needed. I was like, who can I go and get that from? And that's not typical in triathlon. You usually stick with a triathlon coach. But at the time, I kind of exhausted like one person, and I really was needing community. I've been doing this for so long. So it's like, where can I go train in person with a coach? Where can I go run in person with a group? And that was an enjoyable time of training for me.
What was the biggest mistake that you made in your come up as an athlete?
Not investing in myself sooner. I took a lot of shortcuts of like, my back hurts, but I'm not going to invest in a chiropractor. And yet I'd go to spend all this money at all these races. And you think about the time investment in all the training, and you show up in a race in DNF because your back is in so much pain. It's just stupid. Nutrition. I think as I wouldn't even say female athlete, but all athletes, you're especially when running is involved, like that power to weight in cycling, that power to weight ratio, being lighter is faster. And I always thought like, okay, I need to get into a better body composition. And I didn't have anyone guiding me on nutrition. And so I was doing all this kind of extreme dieting as I was trying to train without someone coming in and saying, what are you doing? I eventually got there. And that's when I performed. When I strictly moved my thought process to like, it's not about how I look, it's about how I perform. And everything I eat is about performance. And so everything I ate, every single meal, it was about nutrient density. How's this going to help me be really good for this next session? How can I now recover from the session and do this again? And once I had that nailed down, like I felt unstoppable at the time, but I went years of like exhausted, years of being injured because I was just not feeding myself enough. Um, and then the mental side is so undervalued. I got to the end of my career where I was doing like meditation, and learning how to control your mind and get into that flow state was huge. Where, I mean, I spent all of Ironman Florida box breathing just to calm myself and bring my heart rate down. And in turn, I could push out more power. And, you know, it's so funny. It's, yes, it helped me in performance, but it helped me in every other area in my life where I was now an observer, not a reactor. I was just calm, kind of like what you are. I feel like I'm in a meditative state every time I speak to you because you're so calm. I was like, oh, I need to get back to meditation. Every time I leave you, I'm like, I need to meditate more.
Do I strike you as a meditator?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You see, I go through my phases with meditation.
Yeah.
I go on and off with it. I do the best like when I just like commit to like, okay, I'm gonna do like a week of X amount of time, or like I'm gonna do a month of X amount of time. And then I do it, and then I've never been able to, it's not like something that I do every day, but it is something that I can call on when I need to just like ground myself and center myself. But I have gotten the ice barrel now at my house, so I'll do 3 minutes every morning. Just, it sucks, but you know, it really challenges you to like just stay focused on your breath, and
Yeah.
you know it's just 3 minutes and you know that like it's going to be over and it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But I think honestly, I think prayer has been more powerful for me, and that is like something like non-negotiable for me that I
Yeah.
do without fail every day, multiple times a day. And I actually saw, or I'm going through the Bible in 1 year right now with the Alpha app, and they were just talking about how you know you can pray like at all times, or you can talk to God at all times. And I've like adopted that, and it's like, so like I'm constantly in a state of prayer. But I think there's a difference between prayer and meditation, and I think prayer is like you're actively like asking for help, or
Yeah.
you know, extend like saying like, how I'm going to pray for this person for this cause or whatever. And then meditation is kind of like, okay, like God, like talk to me, like
Yeah.
what do I need, like I'm putting this out there, but like what do I need to hear? But
Yeah.
there also is the meditation of just like being calm and present in the moment, like for an Ironman. So
Yeah.
how do you practice meditation?
Yeah, you know, it's breath work is the way I see meditation, and then focus.
Okay.
So how can I focus my mind on one thing, and then how can I it all stems from breath work.
Mhm.
And really that's it for me. And that's the way I learned it, and that's the way that it applied to exercise, it applied to race day is staying focused,
Mm.
stemming from breath work. And then I'm the same way with prayer. At all times, uh, when you go without it, it's very apparent, and you feel yourself flailing through the day and panicked in moments where you're like, what am I panicking about? It's the small situation. But if you're constantly in prayer, just as you said, like that's why you appear so calm, like you're continuously encouraged, and you know that the Holy Spirit's going to like help you at all times when you're doing things. So that's the best way to live as well. I agree with that.
Was faith a big part of your life when you were in your peak of your training?
Yes, let me wavered. The wavered. So I was born again when I was 26, and that was right about the time I started triathlon. And you go through a phase where we call my husband and I said you're high for Jesus because you know
Yeah, I
you've
know. Yeah,
experienced
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah,
And you're just so excited, and you're just like your life is miraculously like impacted, and everything is like rose colored glasses, and just grateful.
yeah. Mm.
And then the world gets busy, and you get caught up in things that don't matter, and in cases of triathlon, it's like that performance. And so I had some dark times where I was wrapping my identity back into performance, even though I knew better. But then came out of it, thankfully, because of my faith, and realized like that doesn't matter. Um, I would say the last couple years, my faith has grown substantially, because being connected to a church.
Mm.
So just the small groups, the Sunday message, I feel accountable that I have to do those things in order for everything else to operate as it should. And with the business as well, like I feel a huge like responsibility on my shoulder, and I've stopped drinking as well because of it. And it's like, how can I be my best self at all times with all these people counting on me, and my family included? Like, I have to stay in prayer. I have to do these things in order to show up.
And I know you don't market NVDM as like a Christian company or anything like that, but there obviously are so many athletes that are in the community, same athletes who I see with the NVDM coaching shirts on. They're also wearing them to church on Sundays, and
Yeah.
I'm seeing them around town and people on social media who I just see that there's a very strong faith within everybody in the NVDM coaching company. So is that something that you mentor a lot of people through, or like, because I know like a lot of people have come to Thrive. They're like, oh, I was going to Natasha's workouts, and then she invited me here. So
Yeah.
how have you kind of intertwined faith and spirituality within your coaching?
Yeah, I mean, for us, coaching is not just like writing a training plan. It's really getting to know someone and really caring for someone. And when you're in a relationship with someone, and you're like, all my closest friends are athletes of mine, and you have these hard conversations, and you see them struggling, as we all do, and you bring up faith. Now, that was something I intentionally prayed about because I was too shy to be bold about that, out of fear of rejection, out of fear of what would it do to the business. And it got to a point like once I prayed about that, I was like, I'm no longer in fear. Like, if I have an opportunity to bring up what's your relationship with God, like where are you, I'm going to do that. And so through that, those opportunities have come up, and I've invited a lot of people, and I think we've had like 20 to 30 people accept Jesus through in the team over the last like 2 years.
That's amazing.
So it's turned into a ministry. Did I say like we're creating NVDM as a ministry? Like, no, like it's just that's how it's evolved, and that's how God used us. So now I don't shy away from that opportunity, and in my mind it is a ministry. And but I get to know an athlete first, and I never want to force anything on them, but we I bring that up. I bring that up in conversation as we get to know them.
Mm. Yeah, one thing I kind of wanted to circle back to was just like this idea of like, and you mentioned it, like the biggest thing that you would tell your younger self is like invest into yourself sooner. And I kind of get the sense of like, oh, maybe you feel that about the business too. Is like, oh wow, like seeing what I've been able to do now, I wish I would have just invested into the business sooner. But
Yeah.
then again, things all work out the way that they're supposed to.
Yeah.
But when was that like shift, or what like put you over the edge of like, okay, I'm ready to make the jump and turn this thing into something really special?
Just as it got bigger, like we had more money coming in. So the way it works in our company is like an athlete comes in, wants to work with the coach. I connect them with who I think is the best fit, and then the coach gets a percentage of that, and then we have a small percentage. So the more and more that accrued, I'm like, well, yeah, I want to invest it back into the business. And also now I knew like we had something. Like when you're starting something, you're not sure. Like even I'm insecure sometimes. Like, we have a certain number of people reaching out every week for coaching. And when no one reaches out that week, I'm like, what did we do wrong? Like, where is everybody? And then sure enough, like just this week, like that was my thoughts last week. We had like 2 people. And now just today, like we've had 5 people reach out. So anyway, I think just more confidence, like this is working. And it, yeah, and then now seeing like how many lives have been impacted. We're at a stage now, like you try to create a business that can last, and I'm like, okay, now it's like how many people can we bring into this thing from a coaching standpoint, because that from there it's like we can impact more people. Well, what does that take to support the growth? And we're seeing everyone wants to wear our hats and our t-shirts, so I'm like, okay, I need to invest in, like, they join our team because we didn't do it right away. Join our team, we give them a hat, we give them a whatever, and I see again other people do it, but I'm like, okay, there goes everything, like our top end that we use to run the business. And so, yeah, I think the shift just happened as we had more success. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to use all that money that is coming in and more, to be honest, to just go back into the business, to support the coaches, to give something back to the athletes. One thing we pay for is like before these big races, a meal to bring everyone together. And I think for most coaching companies, that would be unheard of to drop $3,000 on a meal before a race on your athletes. But it's huge for us because it really enhances like the community, to have that time together.
Mm. Yeah, nutrition is obviously a huge part of it. You touched on it a little bit in terms of, you know, through your training, and then obviously race day is huge. You do everything right, but on race day, if you mess things up, you just be an absolute bonk. The night before, same thing. So, what have you learned about nutrition over the years, and like what role does that play in performance and longevity?
Yeah, it matters big time. If we're just talking about our day-to-day nutrition, obviously, as you know, like you hear the term all the time, like you can't put bad gas in a car, right? It's
Mm.
not going to run really well. So it's just like, okay, what you eat really, really matters for general health and performance. And um, on that, I'd say like a lot of people are doing the sport because they care about their health and they care about being 60-year-old and being able to run around with their grandkids and stuff like that. So all triathletes come into it with they want to do a full overhaul of their health, and with that is not just training, but nutrition really matters as well. So importance of that, importance of fueling during your workouts, staying up to date with the science, because what we knew a couple of years ago is totally different from what we know now. And making sure that we're applying, luckily we have yes, there's scientific studies going out there, but they have a pool of athletes and a lot of it is, controlled, but we have a pool of a lot of athletes we can see, hey, okay, with this information, let's apply it to these athletes and what are the results from that. And then we use that to then educate the rest of the athletes and say like, hey, this is working. This is what we feel like you need to do. And you have that success. And then we just continue to apply it to more athletes. So, without in an Ironman, without fueling correctly, like there's no way you're going to reach peak performance. And so we definitely make sure to prepare our athletes with how much they need to drink, how many carbs they need to take, where are the sources coming from. Sodium is a factor. So many people's races are ruined because they're cramping come the run. Well, that's totally avoidable. And you got to know exactly how much sodium you have to take, what types of sodium to take, and when to take it. And through us paying attention to what is being said out there and then applying it in practice, come race day, like we know what to do.
Mm. Yeah, sodium is an interesting one. What, or like, how do you determine for an athlete how much they should be taking in, how often they should be taking it? Because isn't there something where like, some people are just like a lot, they sweat out a lot more salt than other people. So do you
Right.
have them like take a test or anything like that?
We do, yeah. So we actually partnered with a company called Levelin, and what
Hmm.
they do is they send us a patch and they put it on their arms. They go do a workout, so it's an active sweat test, and then the sweat is caught in a gauze, and you put that gauze into a little vial, and we send it off to the lab. And in the lab, they can test exact sodium concentration of an athlete as they sweat at that intensity, and then we scale it based on, okay, what was the temperature, what was the humidity. We know how to adjust and go up and down. And so we have athletes know that number. And then we also have athletes weigh themselves before and after workouts at different temperatures and humidities to know how much weight am I losing, how much water am I sweating out, because that impacts how much sodium you're going to take as well. Um, yeah, we get those results. It's crazy. We have some people that sweat about 1,000 milligrams of sodium per hour, which already most people think, wow, that's so much. I know I never took that much and I was cramping earlier. And then we have some guys sweating up to like 5,000 milligrams of sodium per hour. It's insane. So you need to know that number. Yeah. And then you need to be able to take the right sodium sources to be able to utilize, the sodium in order, uh, yeah, for you not to cramp and for everything to work as it should.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, so I just doing a little bit of research. I found so much of how like back in the day during for Ironmans, it was very much like there wasn't as much of an emphasis on like protein intake, and there was a lot of people who were fueling off of like a plant-based diet or things like that. And I still see that a decent amount in the endurance community.
yeah,
But then I also see people like I've had some of the top ultra runners in the world, like Zach Bitter and Jeff Browning and Mike McKnight on this show, who are all advocates for a lower carb approach and eating a lot of meat. And I know
right,
running, like just ultra running and triathlon are very very different sports. But
right.
has there been a shift in overall like how people
Fuel.
fuel, like, yeah, over the
Yeah,
over the
yeah, no,
years?
there's definitely like there was a craze out there that was more prominent of just recently, a few years ago, and there's still people like them that are fueling of more fat and less carbs.
Hmm.
You really need to know.
Is that because you're just at that lower heart rate zone for a long
There
period
you
of
go.
time?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so those are elite athletes, and they've trained themselves to be able to burn more fat for fuel. Now, the general population don't train themselves to burn more fat for fuel.
Right.
And then also they're going at an effort that is, they're using more carbs. Even if they did, they're still going to utilize a lot of carbs. And so,
Yeah. Can you touch a little bit on that, because I mean I'm somewhat aware of that, but isn't it like once you cross over like a certain heart rate zone, you start to burn
yeah,
carbs versus fat?
it's very dependent on the
Okay.
person. So we have athletes do a VO2 max test, and you can tell exactly what is that heart rate number, what is that pace, that power that now you're burning more carbohydrates than fat. And so I can't tell you it's this heart rate number or this zone two because it varies per person. There could be someone zone one and they're just straight up carb sugar burner,
Mhm.
and another person like Zach Bitter that he can go all the way up to almost zone three and he's fat burner. So it's again really the way you train. And you have to be very dedicated to becoming a fat burner for that to work out for you. The general public is not. They're
Okay.
not taking those steps.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you try to push people and like actively train them to develop that metabolic flexibility, or are you just like, hey, we're here for performance, or does it
Yeah.
just depend on the athlete?
No, we do. And it's more so the ones really seeking peak performance. You need to be able to do both. And so we do have like our athletes going out for these long rides at zone one where they're improving their fat burning capacity. But the majority of the athletes, where they only have a certain amount of time to train, they can't go out and do these long sessions. We're just saying, okay, how can we get in as many carbs as possible to fuel the work and have our stomach, be able to utilize that many carbs? And so we are a high carb coaching philosophy. And so even those athletes, those top athletes who are doing these long fat burning rides, come race day, they're still burning majority carbs. So we need to practice them being able to take those carbs and use that, knowing some of it will be fat and then some of it will be carbs.
So for some of your top athletes, how often are they racing? Because I know like it's got to just be such a
hmm
tremendous sprint to prep themselves for like a full Ironman or like a really fast 70.3. I think back to just the training blocks that I've done for marathons and how intense that was. So
right,
and they talk about if you really want to do well at these, like the Ilya Kipchoge's and the best runners in the world, they're only running like 2 races a year. So
right.
when you're looking at like a year for one of these athletes, how often are they racing?
Yeah, it honestly depends on what are they going after here. We had one of our top age group guys. I mean, he's actually qualified to be a pro, but he's going to continue to stay age group just so that he can become better before he becomes a pro. And he learned the hard way because he just raced because he really wanted that win. And he just got worse, worse, worse. It wasn't ideal, but he was like, I'm so close. So ideally, you would build up to a race, and afterwards, we have to take into account recovery. So, how long are they really going to recover? And the fitter they are, the quicker they recover, because some of these athletes are training so much that a race day, in some ways, is just the same amount of training stress as a normal training day for them. So, some take a week, some take 2 weeks. And then we say, okay, we need enough time to be able to build off the work we did before. So, in some cases, that's going to be about another 6 to 8 weeks block before we train again. Um, and that's typically what they would take. So a lot of my top racers, because also you realize this is their living, and so there's not a lot of prize money out there. There's only X amount of opportunity, and so if they had more prize money on the line, like Kipchoge, they would probably only pick one or two and really go in on those. But they're saying, hey, I need about 4 or 5 because I've got to be a part of the series and I've got to make some prize money and I need to stay relevant. But I'm like, as long as we can give ourselves at least 6 weeks between races, we can still shift the fitness up. And that's for the top athletes. For the age grouper athletes, it's like, this is fun. This is exercise. What is going to keep you motivated? What is going to keep you excited to do the training? And a lot of them need these little carrots of little races in between. And we just try the best we can to make sure they go in fresh, they recover before they do their next build for their race. So yeah, hopefully that answered it. It varies, but racing back to back, you're not going to get faster. Give yourself a little time to recover, do another build, taper, and then be fresh for that race.
Has the social media boom allowed any of your athletes to get partnerships or deals or bring in some extra money for themselves to kind of,
Yeah.
fuel their passion?
None of them are playing that game yet, if I can say it.
So
They're now understanding the importance of it.
right, because I think there also is, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah.
There's like the best athletes. There's a difference between like an athlete and like a creator athlete.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I always like said, I was like, I'm never going to be the best athlete because I care about like creating content and telling a story and all that. And like Matt Choi is like a
Right.
good friend. Like he's the same way. He's like, I don't need to run like a 2:30 marathon. Like I have too much fun like creating the content. Whereas somebody like Ken Rideout, he's like, no, I want to like rip your face off and run like as fast as possible.
Yeah.
So is there a difference there for your athletes too?
Yeah, most of them are just focused on performance.
Mm.
And for them, they're like, if they're in the mindset that if you don't have the results, and this is how it used to be, right?
Mm.
If you don't have the results, you're not going to get the support.
Right.
But now things have changed. It's like if you have the following, you're actually going to get more support than the results. And so it's hard because you do want these athletes to focus on what matters, and content creation takes their mind and their focus off what is important, and that is becoming the best athlete they can be.
Totally.
Now, some of my athletes are trying to balance it because, like, I have a 2 times Ironman champion who's also one of my coaches, Alice Alberts, and she's getting brand deals because of her results, because she actually had a really small following. But now, because of the brand deals, well, guess what? They're expecting her to post content. So she's putting an effort into that, and now it's growing. And in my mind, for a triathlete who wants to be the best, like, that is the way to do it. Get the results first, and then start investing in your brand from there.
For you, did you start to work with brands or have any brand deals in the peak of your Ironman training, or was it mostly after?
Yeah, it's funny. Brand deals and all that is very much tied to Instagram and influencing. Back then it wasn't, it was sponsorship, right?
Mm.
And I was very fortunate, but I always had something to offer. And so one of my biggest sponsorships was with Bicycle World and Waco Running Company. And what I offered to them was I put on training camps, I put on clinics, I put on weekend workshops where people came into the store and we'd pack out the store and teach them about triathlon and gear. And in turn, they would then shop around and get what they needed. And so there was definitely like a value. What can I bring to the table? And in turn, then they gave incredible support for it. Same thing, I was sponsored by some endurance products, and they asked me to be on a lot of podcasts and talking to a lot of teams of in the peak of my career. How am I using this product? What have I find the benefits of using this product? And with that, it was just product related for the most part. They're not paying the kind of money they're paying now for you to post something on social media. So, but I had good support.
So you mentioned earlier too that you have a strength coach, you have like swim coach, the bike coach, the run coach, and even for yourself, I think you'd mentioned like you had separate coaches for each of those things in the peak of your training.
Yeah, yeah. Just my last year. Just my
Okay.
last year.
So
Yeah.
now when you bring on coaches, do you have them specified in one specific thing, or are they kind of well-rounded coaches?
No, they're well rounded. And then some of my coaches are even nutrition certified as well, so they can really help athletes with full day-to-day meal plans. But all the coaches are really well equipped on how to teach an athlete how to fuel their training and their racing. And then we all have a general idea of what it takes to fuel for performance as a general diet. We have a strength coach because I feel like that you need on that extra level of expertise on how to program for these endurance athletes. And so he programs through a separate app, and all the athletes use the same program. And then if they have any questions, they go directly to him. And then all the coaches know how to program the swim, bike, and run. Granted, everything is standardized on the back end, and we have a philosophy in place which I created. And so in Training Peaks, which is the platform we use, I have the ability to create all the workouts and all the training plans. And then it's the coach's job to look and say, where does this apply to my athlete? And then how do I manipulate it and adjust it to who I'm working with and the time they have available to train? So no one is going rogue and giving different things. It's all the same way in how we prepare someone for a race. And then outside of that, and I lost my train of thought as far as what we do have a couple run specialty coaches. We have an OCR coach now as well. Like he wins all the Spartan races. We have Charlie Lawrence, he just won the 50-mile record. He's a run specific coach, an ultra coach. But outside of that, it's like all the triathlon coaches know how to coach all three.
How important do you think it is for triathletes to strength train?
Very important. There was even a while there that I didn't believe in it, just based, again, things change, right? And who is in the forefront of the results. And there was a coaching company out there that they were like, you don't need to strength train, you just need to ride in a big gear and run hills. And but then as we learned that it's not optimal for your average age group, specifically because as a pro, you can train and you can recover, and that's giving you the necessary time to adapt and be ready for the next day. But athletes, if they're not doing the necessary mobility and the supportive work, they're just going to get injured. And so we really look at it as how can we create an injury proof our athletes. We use strength training to that manner. And then all the benefits of what strength training will give you for performance as well. So we add plyometrics. A lot of general strength programs don't have plyometrics to help you improve in your running efficiency and economy. We have, because we're always moving just straight forwards and back, we do a lot of lateral movement to help stabilize the athletes, one-legged movements, because it generally, that's what running and cycling is. It's one leg at a time. Just again, to stabilize an athlete. So
What does a week of like peak Ironman training look like?
yeah, so every week is the same in what you're doing. The details of the workout within the workout change. So Monday, we all do mobility and then a recovery swim because you're typically coming off a big weekend. So we want to keep it really low key. Tuesday, we're fresh enough. And so we're able to do a hard bike session and a run off the bike because they need to learn how to do that. And if we get closer to the race, they do a race specific session with a race specific run off. So really familiarizing themselves with the exact demands of race day. Then Wednesday, we're actually turning around. We do 2 back-to-back harder days, and we typically do a tempo run or a track session. And then they're doing a race-specific swim as we get into the season. And then we're recovering off that. And Thursday, it's just an endurance zone 2 ride. They're in the gym lifting some weights. Friday, they typically do a speed swim. And then they're just doing an easy recovery run to set themselves up for a big weekend. And then Saturday, they're doing their long bike. And then as you get again closer to the race, it's very specific to the demands of race day. We're getting those intervals to hit. We're nailing their nutrition. They're doing a run off that's also specific to the race. And then a long run on Sunday. Now, we don't do a long bike and a long run in the same weekend because that's too much stress to recover from to keep this sustainable. So if we have a long bike, we have a short run the next day. If we have a short bike, maybe a little more intensive, we have a long run the next day. And that's how we alternate our programming. And by my understanding, and maybe not after this podcast, we're the only company that does that.
Mm. Do you think there's a difference between fit and healthy?
That's a good question. I would say yes. How I'm going to expand on that question would take a more thorough thinking to say, this is why, Dom. But yes, yeah, absolutely. Right now, I could say when someone is training for an Ironman, like we have a lot of guys that are training so hard. So guess what? Their hormones are taking a hit and maybe their T's going down, etc. So they're fit, but they're not healthy because of those hormonal imbalances, you know. And we do have a lot of athletes like they love the sport, they want to train hard, but they have 3 kids at home, they have a full-time job, and so they're getting up at 4 in the morning to do a workout, and then they're coming home and they're doing another workout, and that's just not unhealthy. That's just not healthy, but they're fit. So that could be the best way I can answer it.
Yeah, I was just interested because I would say at like the fittest that I ever was this past spring when I was doing like, 50, 60 plus miles a week, and I was doing multiple days of strength training, and like physically I was very fit, but in health I was not healthy.
Yeah.
I actually had my blood work taken. My testosterone levels were extremely low because I was overtraining, because I was not sleeping well, because I was not recovering. All of those things really do matter.
Right.
And yeah, I was really just curious because I see all these people in endurance who just, I mean, they think they can go forever, right?
Yeah.
They think they can just keep doing that. And when I mean, obviously I've had a pretty crazy health thing happen over the past couple of months, but I've taken a step back from endurance, obviously, and I've been easing my way back into the gym, getting more recovery, getting in the sauna, the ice bath, changing diet around. I'm not shoving 400 grams of carbs in my face every day, and
Yes, that too.
I'm getting blood work done next week, so I'd be interested to see the difference with that. But I was curious if you guys like encourage your athletes to stay up to date on like their blood work and things like that.
Yeah, no, we absolutely do. Yeah, we do. Now the question is, because I have a lot of young guns, and they just like to train hard, and so it's like they get their blood work, and I'm like, look at your T, and I know like they're eating crap and they're not sleeping well and they're training. Like if I give them 30, they do 40 hours, but they're so driven they don't want to stop, and so unfortunately the only thing that's going to have them stop is some health issue is going to come up and it's going to go like see. But we try to encourage like, okay, once they're getting those results in, we have to make the changes. And I feel like we do our best to approach this in a healthy way. I know for a fact that a lot of athletes come to us and they want to train for an Ironman, and they're like, is that it? Like, I thought I was supposed to do 100-mile rides like 6 months out to prepare. I'm like, no, like you're just doing it like 3 times, like, but every other weekend, not even every weekend, every other weekend, like the final 3 weeks, alternate weeks. And it's because of that. Like we want to keep them as healthy as possible so they can do this for a really long time. And Harold actually calls it the minimum effective dose. What is the minimum dose we can give these athletes to perform the best they can? Is what we're trying to do.
Mm. Yeah, minimum effective dose. Sometimes taking a step back a little bit and just realizing that
Yeah.
your body needs a little bit of time to recover,
Yeah.
so you can come back and do more of it.
Well, and we just on that note, we do a lot of heart rate training for that reason. And we're
Okay.
very strict about it. I feel like they're
They wear the monitors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They wear the chest strap. This is crap.
Yeah.
So it's just retie. And so we do try to manage their stress through heart rate. And when it's time to go easy, like they need to go really easy. And it's very annoying for some of them that they need to go so slow at first, but they get a hang of it. And they're like, oh, wow, I feel great. Like I feel like I could run forever. And then, oh, wow, now I'm running faster. I'm like, see? But it's like those first 2 months are a pain point for our athletes. But they know they trust us and they do it. And then we get the results.
So how many people do you have working on staff for you now?
So we have 20 coaches, but then something I do is I look at what I can delegate and I do amongst the coaches. And so one of my first coaches, actually the first coach, he is my COO and he handles all the billing and all the things that I know need to turn around and are of importance. I give it to him. And then I have someone that I just brought on is a community manager. So she's posting on Facebook, all the welcomes. She's connecting people at races. She's going to be in charge of setting up the team dinners, et cetera, et cetera. We have someone doing our social media. We have someone doing my social media. I actually hired that out. There's no way I have time to do any of those swim videos. We just film for 30 minutes once a week and then he edits. But he's one of our athletes. And then we have like I don't even know what we try to give titles, and so I don't want to mess up a title, but yeah, she's kind of a jack of all trades. Jules, do you know Jules Levesque?
I do.
She's amazing, and so she's doing all sorts of things from us, from reels to engagement to reaching out to some sponsors who want to work with us to mailing out the welcome bags. She does that for me, and then she covers swim workouts as well. When we swim at Lifetime. So yeah, we have multiple roles, and then I try to, as we see more roles come up, we try to create more positions within the staff. And then if there's something like one of our young athletes, because I don't know if you know, we've had young athletes just move here, a bicycle and a backpack and no car. And they're staying with people and they're staying on couches and they're living their dream. And we're like, okay, well, what can you do? And so as I said, the YouTube videos and all of that, and my Instagram, one of those kids who came here like that, that's his job. And now he's actually moving into his own apartment, which is a big deal from this opportunity next week. So yeah, the goal is to keep doing that.
What does a day in the life look like for you now as being more of the manager of everything, CEO, founder?
Yeah.
But then on top of that, you also have Nadine, you also have your husband, you also have the other community obligations that you're a part of down here. So what does a day look like for you?
Yeah, so I'll try to speak to an average weekday. Most mornings I coach first thing in the morning. And so I'm up really early and my mom will come over to get Nadine ready for school. And so I'm up, I'm coaching, she's taking her to school and getting her ready. And then after that, I typically have maybe a couple meetings or I'm coming in, I'm freshest in the morning. So if I have any big projects, that's when I do my focused work. And I'd say I time block 2-3 hours and get big things done for the company to move forwards. Then I open up the Calendly where athletes who want to connect to me, so I also coach a lot of athletes. Anytime they want to get on a call and talk to me about their race or whatever it may be, that's an opportunity like the middle of the day. Then I always give myself a break at about 1 to 2 and I take a nap. Right now it's like a 30-minute nap and I honestly, my mind is so going. I just breathe. Like I just do some breath work and I just try to calm myself and lay on my back. I get up. I have a cup of coffee, by the way, at like 2 o'clock. It's like the second start of my day. And then I go straight back into work. And at that time, I'm checking athletes' workouts. So every day we try to go in and everyone who did a workout, we go in and we analyze it and we give them feedback. So our athletes are hearing from us almost every single day. And that's like a standard across the board for all our coaches, non-negotiable. We don't give you any more athletes if you can't just do that. And so I do that, and that will take some time. And then anything else, emails coming through, maybe some more phone calls, I'll do that until my daughter has tennis. So like yesterday, she had tennis at 4. I'll drive over. My mom's picked her up from school, and I watch her tennis lesson. And then she comes home, and then it's arts and crafts and games and that and dinner and bath time and until she goes to sleep. At that time, then it's time for me to hang out with my husband. So unfortunately, he gets the scraps at the end of the night where we get to hang out. When he's at home, like we see each other during the day and we chat. If not, as soon as she's down, I actually work some more. And if there's something to be done, and I always give myself a list of these like 5 things have to be done today, and I will not go to sleep unless those 5 things are done. If that means I'm working till 10, and usually 10 o'clock, I'm like, okay, I gotta go to sleep. If not, then I'll try to read a book or something, and then I'm in bed by like 9:30. Yeah, and that's we have small group on Tuesdays. There are some other things that we do. As I said, my daughter typically has some sort of activity. We take her to play sports in the afternoon, and I always try to never miss that. That's it.
So that's a very full day.
It is.
What are some of the non-negotiables for you throughout that day that maybe you mentioned, maybe you didn't, that you have to do
Yeah.
each day, or maybe most days,
Yeah.
to, really be at your best?
Yeah. So I have a little, like a check off list that we bought on Amazon. You just like swipe the thing across as like it's check, and then I bring it back to X's the next day. And it starts with Bible. I have to read my Bible and pray first thing in the morning. I never took my vitamins, but now I did my blood work, and I'm like, I'm iron deficient, and I'm this deficient. I'm like, I gotta take my vitamins.
A lot of female athletes are iron deficient.
They are, yeah. I struggled with that my whole career. So I'm like, gotta take my vitamins, and with that, I'm trying to drink more water. So it's health, right? How can I be my best? And it's like those are key things. I try, one of the other things on that list are track my work. And every time I start working, there's this app called Toggle, and I'll hit it. And so as soon as I do that, I'm like, okay, you got to work. You can't be distracted by other stuff and go do the laundry. And so I hit that, I track what I'm doing. And I do that also, I write down what that is, because I'm like, is this something I can delegate? And I'm aware, I look back on the end of the week, I'm like, where is my time spent with what I need to do or what I don't need to do? Because I know this company is going to keep growing. If I don't need to do this, I'm handing it off and I'm paying someone else to do it. So I do that, and that's on my list. And then outside of that, like exercise is on the list. And so I feel so much better if I do it. Of course, trying to eat healthy. And then it's really just the end of the list is read to Nadine, play with Nadine, try to be present. And then like ideally in 9 p.m. bedtime is ideal. I don't say it happens all the time, but yeah. And the nap. I do lay down every day. I have to. Even if I'm not tired, I just lay down.
Do you think a lot of what you learned as an athlete is now being applied to like your daily schedule in terms of like meticulously tracking all that stuff?
Yeah, I've always been a planning out every minute of the day.
It's always been so tough for me.
Yeah, and I stick to it. Like, and so, when my schedule comes up, I mean, you should look at my schedule. It's like, it's blocked in colors. I know which color is exercise. I know which color is Nadine. And my family knows too. So we have this little board, and everything I have that day is on a board. So when my mom comes in, she can see, oh, she's going to be on calls. I can't come at this time, whatever it may be, or, oh, she has this on one night. And then if my daughter, because my mom helps me with booking my daughter's dentist appointment or ear appointment, and then she goes and she writes it on the board. I'm like, okay, I need to put that in my calendar. So we have a system down for my family and us to know like what is going on.
So I'm sure your attention and your energy is being pulled in a million different directions at all different times. And I'm curious, how do you, decipher what to say yes to and what to say no to?
That's so tough. I am trying to be a more of a no person right now, which I hate because you don't get to where we got to without saying yes too many times. So for the longest time, I'm like, yes. Like, we're going to show up. You never know what's going to come of this opportunity. And now yeah, I just kind of weigh out the priority list, right? What is the importance of this as it pertains to faith, family, business, me? And so, and then I'll, go from there. Every now and again, I do say a yes, just because I feel like I know where they're coming from. They're trying, so like they're hustling to do their thing, and they just want an opportunity to like talk to me about that. I'm kind of like, yes, I'm gonna give my time. And something I talked to Jules about lately was I undervalue, I think we all do, our presence somewhere. So I'm like, who am I? Like, whatever. No one cares if I showed up to their thing, but they do. Like, I know if I organize something and I invite some people, like, I really hope they show up, to support what I'm doing. And I'm trying to be more aware of that. So I'm really, while I'm saying no, I'm also trying to like say yes to make sure that I'm not too like big for, because I'm not like for any circumstance, because you just want to support people.
Do you have a why statement for your life?
A why? Um, no, I mean, I don't think I'm like, this is my why. Like, it's funny. I was on a podcast the other day, and they were like, "What do you tell your athletes when things are hard?" And I had to think about that. And one of my athletes said, "What is your why?" I'm like, no, I don't say that. Like, I actually, I'm totally going off track right now, but I think when an athlete like has a hard moment, I'm like, well, you don't need to do that. And then the pain of regret of not doing it, of like backing out, is like way worse than like, no, I'm gonna do it, and then they go ahead and do it. But anyway, that's a whole nother tangent. My why, um, I mean, on the faith side, I'm just like, God has blessed me with an incredible family. God has blessed me now with bestowed upon me like this incredible business to bless others. So I think my why is showing up for that reason. I'm not going to waste these gifts. Um yeah. I mean, I just feel so blessed that I have to show up and make the most of it. Yeah.
That's beautiful. With everything you have going on in life right now, what excites you the most?
There I yeah, there's a lot that's going to happen in 2024. And there's a lot of new things, and just as it pertains to the business, we are, how you said like, when do you know to invest more? I'm investing more. Like, I am investing more in my team.
Yeah.
My team is so capable, and I'm saying, hey, like, we're doing this together versus putting it all on my shoulders. So I'm actually really excited like about that. How is that team going to rise? And I have full confidence they are. So that's exciting. um, yeah, I mean, as it pertains to family, just Nadine, you don't have kids yet, but every year is so different. And so that's exciting. Just seeing how she's growing up, and then Steve's opportunities and how we're growing as a couple. All of those things are fun. I'm excited. It's crazy if I look back on this year, everything that has happened. I would never have dreamed it. And I'm like, wow, like what's gonna happen next year? And I feel like I'm in a better place emotionally, spiritually. I'm in a better place in everything. Like, okay, if I can bring this self into the year, last year I actually brought a broken self into the year. There's a whole nother story on that. Yet we accomplished so much. I could bring a whole self into the year. What can we do?
It's really exciting. I'm excited for you
Thank
because
you.
every single week I just see these amazing things that are going out on your social media, on the team's social media, on YouTube, like in the community. Like it's so inspiring to see. And, you know, I think back to when I found your content, last year, and then realizing like, oh, some people I know like actually know Natasha, and she's like super involved in the community down there in Austin. And I reached out and I was like, hey, would love to connect. And you were like, hey Dom, like it's great to meet you, but like I'm so busy right now. Like yeah, you didn't say that, but you
Yeah.
just said like I have a lot going on right now. Like excited to meet you when you get down to Austin. And then
Yeah.
I saw your church. I had no idea that you're gonna be there, and that you had been there for so long and brought so many people into the community. And so it's just very inspiring to see you're one of those people that I draw inspiration and motivation from. And, the days that I don't want to show up, I'm like, Natasha's getting up and she's doing it. So I just want to say thank you for all that you're doing and all that you do and all that you are. My last question for you is, this is the Pure Ambition podcast. So I ask all my guests, when you hear those two words, what does that mean to you?
Yeah.
So Pure Ambition, when you hear that, what does it mean and how does it apply to your daily life?
Yeah. It's so funny. I'll tell you the truth, and now I'm totally blank. When I was driving here, I remember listening to a podcast of yours, and I knew you asked this question. And I was like, what is the definition of ambition? And it was like, what I read up was like driven for success, right? I think was one of the definitions, driven to succeed. Like, and uh, my ambition right now, impact, I think is the word that comes to mind. My ambition is how can I have and leave a lasting like impact on my family, my friends, and people, and what steps are taken. Right now, the vehicle of choice is triathlon coaching and swim videos. So, yeah, that would be my pure ambition, is just is impact.
I love that word. I love that word. Natasha, this has been so much fun. I'm glad we finally got to do it.
Me too.
If people want to connect with you, if they want to check out more of your content, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. It's Natasha VDM81. That's my birth year. And then nvdmcoaching.com is our website. And then if you forget all of that, just write Natasha Triathlon Austin and you'll find me.
You'll find her.
Yeah.
There is a Natasha Van Der Merwe. Is that
Yes.
Van Der Merwe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is close enough.
Yeah.
There's an actress or a singer, and I was like, oh. When I looked at your name, I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, Van Der Merwe is very popular in South Africa.
Van Der Merwe.
Van Der Merwe.
Van Der Merwe.
Van Der Merwe is really how you say it.
I'm going to be repeating that like my whole workout that I'm going to try to pronounce that correctly.
But yes, yeah, no, it's a very popular name, and so I looked that up as well. So.
Got it. Natasha, you are a gem. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much for tuning into today's episode. I wanted to give you all a heads up too that I launched a free community on the Upspace app where you can join, ask me questions, connect with like-minded individuals, follow my 4-week running and strength training program that has some dedicated mobility sessions in there as well, so that we can all optimize our health and fitness together. So if you're interested, head over to the App Store, download the Upspace app, and join the Pure Ambition community today. Love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Is the most prominent thing, or getting them to eat, regenerative meat, raw dairy, because that's a huge jump for a lot of people. And our mutual friend, Brett,